Welcome everyone to week 2 of our Pastor's Live event here at St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Oviedo, Florida. I'm Pastor Arp, and I'm flying solo this morning just to bring you some words of encouragement and a little update of all that's happening here at St. Luke's as we continue down this road that we've never been on before, with people being asked to stay at home and limit their contact with one another. So I'm curious about how you're holding up. How did your weekend go? First of all, just thank you all for joining us for worship on Sunday. I love seeing the comments as they come in. I was able to sit in on the fuel service and watch those comments online, and I want to encourage you to do even more of that interaction. So I'm wondering if you all are texting with one another that usually sit around you on Sunday morning and sharing that worship experience in a very different kind of way than we would normally do, and yet finding new ways to be together. So it looks like we had about 480 different locations that logged in on Sunday. Now, we don't really know how many viewers there are at each of those locations, but about 450 actually registered their attendance with the online link that comes out in the email. So you might want to consider that if you would like for us to know that you were watching with us. And we'd really like to see some pictures, if you have some that you would like to send to us, that we would be able to use to let other people see one another as part of our worship experience. If you had people gathered in your family or in your community, your neighborhood, staying within the required, of course, fewer than 10, and the social distancing aspects of it all, we'd love to see any pictures that you've taken of worship experiences that you're having. Now, what I'd really like to know from some of you is what kinds of things are you doing to adapt to this new situation that we're in? I think one of the biggest changes for me is the absence of any evening meetings. And as a result of that, Lois and I have had opportunities that we don't often get to go out for a walk and just talk about all of the things that are happening. And that's been a real blessing for us. Last night, we did a Google meeting with our family, and we had all 8 of our grandkids on at the same time. Let me just say that it was interesting, to say the very least, but it was really good to see all of their faces. So I'm curious what other things y'all are doing to be able to stay connected with one another. I heard a couple of people this past week saying that they're getting lots of projects done that they've been putting off for a while. One member told me that her house hasn't been this clean in years. I talked to a mom this past week who was sharing with me the challenge of she and her husband both trying to work from home, being on the phone, on the computer, and at the same time trying to answer their 3 kids' questions about the online classes that have now started up. Patience, I think, was the thing she asked me to pray for her. There's lots of people out walking and biking. We've been observing those trying very hard to keep their physical distancing on the bike path, and it's been just a really fascinating time to see people out and about and figure out how to be together while being apart. So in a minute here, I want to start talking to you about a psalm that I've chosen for this week, but let's just take a little break now. I'm blessed to be joined by a member of our music department, Mr. Pete Prochnow, in just a little moment to meditate, perhaps, as we head into a time of devotion. Welcome back. It's good to just be able to be quiet for a minute and to maybe pray a little while the music is playing. I've chosen for our psalm to think about this week one of my favorites, and that's Psalm 121. Let me just read it to you. It's a fairly short psalm. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Now, before I make a few comments on this psalm to help you think about it and apply it to our situation, I have to tell you a funny story, because in my first congregation in Iowa, one of the first people that I had come and help me to work with me on staff was a retired school principal, and his name was Dick Wenz, W-E-N-Z. And when I would get a little frustrated or overwhelmed by what was happening, Dick would quote to me Psalm 121, verse 1 from the old King James Version, where it says, I lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence, and he would put his last name in, from whence my help cometh. And I would smile, and then we would work through that. So that kind of put me on to Psalm 121 as a psalm that really helps me be able to focus and think in times of stress and difficulty. So let's just think about it for a minute. I lift up my eyes to the hills. What you need to know is this was a psalm that was actually written and used for the people of Israel as they made pilgrimages at specific times of the year up to the city of Jerusalem. And the city of Jerusalem and the temple were on the top of a mountain, on top of Mount Zion. Now, interestingly, that's true across cultures and across time, that temples, places of worship, were frequently built on the top of high places. In fact, you might recall from the Old Testament that God's people sometimes struggled with the high places of the false gods of the land of Canaan. Maybe you remember the episode in 1 Kings chapter 18 where Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal, and they had sort of a duel that went on and revealed that there's only one true God, and that is the God of Israel, the God who rescued these people from slavery in Egypt and brought them and promised them that he would be with them and strengthen them and comfort them and bid them by faith to remain faithful and true to him. And so as they struggled with that, I want you to picture a group of a family, perhaps, or multiple families, an extended family, and they're going up to Jerusalem, and it's a long hill. It's a climb up to the city of Jerusalem, and they've been at it for several days, and they're dusty from the road. They're tired and they're worn out, and they come around the very last bend in the road, and then there it is in front of them, the temple sitting on top of Mount Zion. And the leader of the group cries out in a loud voice, I lift up my eyes to the hills. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth, is the response of all the rest of the people as they hear that welcome sound that Jerusalem, their destination, is now in sight. And all of a sudden, there's a new energy in their steps, and they are excited as they anticipate the end and arriving at their destination, and the joy that will follow in the celebration that comes. Well, maybe a way to think about that a little bit here in our particular moment in time is that just as Israel had distractions of false gods and other high places, that's true of us too. There are lots of other high places in our culture that are demanding our attention, that claim to have the answers to the questions that we have. And it's so easy to turn away from what God says, to turn away from the promises that He has made to us, and go looking around in all kinds of places for the strength, for the comfort, for the reassurance that we need. So I'd like for you to start the week with this question. Where does my help come from? Where does my comfort and my strength and my reassurance and my accountability and the call to serve? Well, that's what we've been calling the Jesus adventure, and that's what it's all about. You remember that I told you last week that whenever you see the word Lord in the Old Testament in all capital letters, that's an indication from the translators that that is the personal covenant name for God. That's the name Yahweh, the one and only true God of the universe, who this psalm begins by saying just happens to be the creator of the heavens and the earth. He is the one who knows exactly what we need. He is the one who has made this place. He's the one who knows what the brokenness of sin has done to it. He's the one who grieves over the devastation that's being unleashed upon us even now. But even more than that, the Creator also entered into His creation in the person of His only Son, Jesus. Now, next Sunday, believe it or not, is Palm Sunday. And that's going to be followed by Holy Week and then Easter. And we're going to watch Jesus climb to the top of another hill to a place called Golgotha. And there He's going to be crucified for the mess that we've made of this world. And then He's going to be raised to life again to give us His resurrection life, as both Pastor Roberts and Pastor Teig taught us yesterday in the message. That's going to give us the ability to have strength, to have comfort, to have reassurance, but even more than that, to look for opportunities to serve those around us. So let's lift up our eyes to that hill, to the hill where Jesus suffered and died and then rose again, and receive the strength and the encouragement and the challenge that we need for another week of fighting COVID-19. Let's pause for a minute and meditate on that as we listen again. I hope that this time together has found you well and adapting to these new circumstances. Hope you'll take the opportunity to send emails, use the contact button on the web page to share messages with us of needs that you might see out there in the community that we could help with in some way. I do need you to know that I made the decision to close the church offices this week for the sake of our staff, because they needed to be safe and feel comfortable with what was happening at this particular moment in time. But we're all still here, available by email and able to connect with you as best we can through the electronic means that are available to us. The school office is open from 8 to 10 in the morning to help parents pick up materials and things that they might need for their children as they continue to learn online. On Wednesday, we'll do our Wednesday morning time as a live Lenten service rather than one of these chats on Facebook. But there's lots of other interesting things that are happening. This will be week 2 of the Right Now Media Bible study on Psalm 23, if you haven't joined up for that. And we'll put some discussion questions out as well for that on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. I know that a group of our men created a Zoom meeting for their Sunday morning huddle group, men's huddle, and I know that they would love to have you join that. And if you want more information about that, just ask and we can give you the way to connect to them. Lois and I are going to hold our small group this evening online as we continue to try and master this new technology. Last week, Pastor Roberts recorded his Wednesday men's Bible study and shared it as a YouTube opportunity for those who are registered for that class. And so if you'd like to join in on that, you just need to let us know so that we can add your name to that email invite. Likewise, with my women's Bible study, if you'd like to join in, let us know an email address and we can invite you to that. So, I hope you have a blessed week as we go forward from here. A quick word of happy birthday greetings to Alex and Jason and Cole and Mike and Coleman and Joshua. Have a blessed week.